Do, do, do.
Do, 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 do. Steve Van Sampson,
Curtis M. Lawson,
Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smith. Hey everybody, thank Cthulhu. It is Sunday. Welcome to the Owl Light Network. We're doing another episode of The Clutch of Personalities. And tonight we have with us cosmic horror author William Holloway.
Hello.
We have recently, he recently released a book called Lucky's Girl, and he has a couple of other things that are out there as well. We're going to be talking about Lucky's Girl tonight and some of his other things. And if you are here, join us, get in the comments. If your name is in the comments after we've gone live here, you have a chance of winning some of his merchandise. We'll be selling out some copies of Lucky's Girl to people. So get yourself there, get yourself in the comments, say something, ask some questions. We want to have this all participatory. And fabulous stuff, by the way. I read 2 of his books in the past week and just wonderful. You're gonna love it. There's also, I was gonna mention this right before we got started, and then we're gonna dive right into you. There is a sale currently going on for Lucky's Girl and other books over at Weird House Press. So if you go to Weird House Press and use, I think it's just the term sale, you get 20% off.
This is
true.
true.
Correct?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Some of our links need to be fixed on this because the website changed today, but I will get those fixed as soon as the show is over. So yeah, hop in, make some comments. And hey, Josh. Hey, Tom. Hey, William, how are you doing?
Well, I'm fantastic. And very, very happy to be here. And very, very happy to talk about cosmic horror and any other horror related stuff or just whatever you guys got for me. I'm here for you.
Oh, horror always makes us happy, especially cosmic horror. We have our own Cthulhu's.
Yes.
Awesome. Not everyone has their own Cthulhu's.
Well, my kid has the smaller version, so of course.
Right on. You know,
Yeah,
I got one right there.
Ooh,
You like
that is awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I have my hand puppet Cthulhu.
Right on. But do you have Cthulhu tattoos?
No.
I
I
have
have the best Cthulhu tattoo I've seen so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Definitely.
So
I
have the Balrog. I don't know if you can see that. Ooh, yeah, there's the Balrog.
Let's
Actually,
do it. Go up close on that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you like that?
Oh, yeah. Show us the Cthulhu one again while we got you up close here.
That's right, right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It is not actually Cthulhu. It's a mind flare, but up close in the face, it's kind of the same idea.
Just give him wings.
Yeah. And that's not actually the Balrog. That is a type 4 demon from D&D. This is actually all D&D stuff I stole. So, it's
we're also big D&D nerds, so that's fine too. 3.5 for me though.
Hey, I'm all the way 1 ED.
Well, okay, I started on first ed. I'm just saying I will not go past 3.5 because 4 upset me and 5 just annoys me. So
well, I mean, truth be told, I have not actually played D&D myself since the 80s. But it's I still read the books and love the artwork. So,
Hey, Stefan, we froze?
Hi, Stefan.
Stefan is awesome too. We got all these awesome people that watch us. We're gonna give a shout out Tom there at Brill Pro. He does a great show too. He's part of the Owl Light crew, as is Stefan. But Tom has his own podcast he does at Brill Pro. Catch him out on YouTube. He does a lot of reviews, does some pop culture stuff, recently did the Ghost Chili Pepper Whopper and chicken fries from Burger King kind of thing as a experiment, and that seemed to go over pretty well.
What happens when you actually eat that?
You spontaneously combust, I believe.
Okay, well,
made for an interesting show.
It's going to shrink, I suppose, but you got to go how you got to go.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in a blaze of fire, that'd be fun.
It's it's a way to go. If one has to go in a puff of smoke or a large sort of napalm style explosion, that's pretty cool. I like that.
I'm a big Ghost Rider fan, so going out with like a Ghost Rider impression would be rather cool.
That would
I just need to wear leather whenever I do. Why are you walking around in spiked leather and chains? Just in case I spontaneously combust, I'm gonna go out looking like Ghost Rider, man. Danny Ketch all the way. So
hell yeah.
Sorry, I'm wandering off track. We are going to talk to you about some of your books.
Okay. Let's do that.
All right. What initially started you down the cosmic horror stream?
Yeah. Which was the first story?
Well, I've never written anything that's not cosmic horror.
I mean, which story that you read was the first one that got you kicked off?
That's a hard one. So I'm going to have to, do the old faithful and blame it on H.P. Lovecraft.
That works.
I had read stuff before then, but nothing really ever made a dent. I'd read Tolkien and, I'd read Dune and that kind of stuff. Nothing really ever made the kind of really serious impression that Lovecraft did. He just did something with language that no one had ever done before that I was aware of, not Poe, definitely not Stephen King. And it was just a whole different ballgame. So I'd say Lovecraft, and I would have to say The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The ideas in that book, to me, are so frightening. I think one of the scariest ideas known to man is the idea of eternity. And the idea of being essentially awakened from the dead and just left somewhere forever is a really, really frightening thought. That's why I would say that, of the kind of monsters that inhabit horror, the most frightening one to me in many ways is the standard ghost, just because there is no sorrow, no human words that can express the pain of eternity. And so yeah, I guess I got off track a little bit there with the answer, but
no, that's fine.
No, it makes sense. It works.
Yeah. So Case of Charles Dexter Ward is probably the one that did it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Stefan, you might want to, if you go over to YouTube, maybe it'll be better. If you scroll down to the Owlite Network and go to the live, it should pop up there for you.
Yeah, I usually end up having to do that during Facebook streams.
Yeah, Facebook sometimes has issues, but
I don't have the quickest network, so the back and forth could be caused by my slow network.
Well, we're seeing you move, so every now and then we might lag a little bit. My network isn't the greatest either. I tried replacing it, but somehow when I got new internet, and my laptop won't stay connected to it. So I had to plug into my old DSL. So I'm doing 2 up and 25 down.
Hey.
Yeah, that's why I get slow sometimes. But when you were bringing up the eternity thing, this was something I wanted to ask you about. And this is kind of written out long, so forgive me here.
Mm-hmm.
But what I discovered was that in reading Blackwood Estates and Lucky's Girl, you are really good at writing isolation and loneliness. And you were just saying with the ghosts just being there, stuck there eternally.
Yeah.
and you have copious examples of it. It's people who, even when they're with a group, it's like they feel like they're not quite a part of it. There's either a betrayal or a secret, or they just don't have the confidence. There's something separating them. And that really adds to the internal horror of your writing. Is that something you use in other stuff as well? I've only read the 2 so far.
I would say so. There is, I would say that, without a real investment in characters, writing is kind of meaningless. And that's, one problem I have with a lot of horror writing that happens these days is there's almost no character development. And I don't care how nasty their death was. If I don't care about that person, it doesn't register with me. And the thing is, you really have to care about the people, that you're reading. And that's not going to matter. And you can try to put all your care out there that you want. But if the writer is not giving you a character that you can care about, it just ain't going to happen. So I do my best to write characters that feel as real as they can and that do face the real tragedies of the real world.
Yeah, I'm the character
feel that
person.
in Lucky.
I'm sorry, what?
I could feel that in Lucky, how Houston had failed him and how everything had failed him.
Lucky, I would say that one of the things about Lucky that I would say that people, I think, relate to is that there is this fact in life that you can do everything right and you can still just get your ass handed to you in ways that can't even be summed up with words. And Kenny in that book, he's a composite of some guys I know, and so is Phil in Blackwood Estates.
Okay.
And you again, it's all about character. It's all about development of character, and you've got to actually care, and they've got to care. And that's what I think makes for writing that actually moves you in any way, shape, or form. I am sorry about all the stuff with the glasses.
It's fine. If it's bothering you, do whatever you need to do. It's just I'm sitting over here thinking because Kenny starts out in a job that a lot of my family is working in. They work offshore on rigs.
Mm-hmm.
And having talked to them as long as I have and being in Texas, it's a matter of I can see how all of that can impact him.
Oh, God. I mean, that poor guy. I mean, I think that some people have said that I kind of actually go too hard on some of my characters, I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, it's like there's Kenny, poor guy.
You threw the mountain at him. You didn't throw the rocks. You threw the entire mountain, like a piece of Appalachia, at him.
Yeah, he got squished, and it's just there's as a parent, you try and you try and you try in life, but sometimes it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. You are still just gonna be a fucking skid mark, and it's just a hard truth of life. I mean, obviously fictional aspects, but this is here as well.
Well, seeing the way that you write your parenting and watching how they observe their children, and then also looking from the children's perspectives, at least in Lucky's Girl, you get to see more from the children's perspective. Like when there's this realization that my dad is a human. My dad isn't just the person, I can hate my dad for not being a good dad, but holy shit, my dad is a good human. Yeah. So I guess he was trying. I just never understood it. And but that separation between them all too, because if there's not much that hurts more as a parent than when your kid's just like, fuck you, you know?
Yeah. Or when they say, I hate you.
Yeah. And it's not like you did anything wrong. They just don't.
I hate you. And it's, and you can have the best of intentions and everything planned out perfectly and still just fucking incinerate.
And it's usually something that has nothing to do with you even. You're just somebody that they can yell at because you're a parent. You're supposed to take it. And I don't think it's ever really, well, I mean, it's intentionally angry, but I don't think a lot of kids intentionally do it to be harmful. They don't understand that parents are people.
Yeah, they don't understand the impact that it's going to have. I mean,
yeah, they're like, oh, tomorrow they'll give me allowance, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they also don't get that, you know, after you get to a certain age, you don't bounce anymore. You just kind of hit the ground and go splat. And that's, you know, that's what happened to poor old Kenny. Splat.
I'm going to pop up these real quick. Stefan says, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, man?
He has a Necronomicon tattoo.
Very cool. That right there, I gotta admire that. That's a good one.
Oh, Stefan's great. He's a good horror author too, and publisher. Right. And he publishes some cosmic horror as well. So
very cool.
There we go. Yes, I am in some of it.
Very good.
But so yeah, so that I loved all that, the isolation of the characters, and even with the big tree in this, it was isolated through a huge period of time. And that's when you're saying eternity, that's a God who has been isolated and is doing their best to reach out. And that was something else I wanted to ask you about. Was Lucky just that, what was it that made, this is going to sound weird to people who haven't read it yet, but read it, ignore this little part. What was it that got Lucky chosen by the big tree? Was it just that he was the type of person that was listeing for that? Or was it that he was actually, was he that charismatic ahead of time?
Well, I think that the tree saw him, so to speak, when he was doing his hunting and realized that he was the kind of person that could take the next step. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. If he was already showed that he was capable of doing the things he did, then, you know, the big tree saw that. And that's I think kind of the best explanation of that kind of phenomenon I could give you. It's that the tree saw him doing what he was doing and judged him to be worthy.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I just wasn't sure if it, by the way, you have to help me exorcise Son of a Preacher Man from my head after having read this book. One of the main characters here, Lucky, that we're talking about, his daddy's a reverend. And as you can see with Lucky's Girl, there are women involved.
Oh, yeah.
That fall for Lucky. And I have had Son of a Preacher Man, and Katie Seagal version at least. So not terrible, but I've had it stuck in my head since like a couple chapters in. It was just like, oh God.
So
which was so well done.
Did you like better, do you think? Lucky or Blackwood?
That's a really hard question because they both had fabulous aspects to them. In Blackwood Estates, I loved it's a book, by the way, guys, about a phenomenon that isolates a community and causes some things to change, and then there's a bunch of other background. It's great. You should read that too. And the environment changes. I liked the dryness going on.
Yeah.
That was caught. So it was like the world was actually fighting them on their survival. It wasn't just the beasties and the other things out there. And the very end, you put in a twist that I was not expecting at all, but that I appreciated.
Oh, the one
And
on
I'm
the
not gonna.
last page.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. That everybody has to read it, but I was just like, "Oh, you did that," and it was brilliant.
It really kind of works, you know. That's
you
how
made me.
Yeah.
You made me go and start researching, because that's something I'm a big studier of, that subject.
Yeah.
Studier, student of. And so I'm like looking through my notes, and I'm like pulling out books, and I'm like, is that name there? I don't find the name. I don't see. Oh shit. He's fucking with me. I don't know. Now we have the like 30. Yeah, it totally worked.
And you know what's so weird is that nobody had, to me as a writer, that seems like the low-hanging fruit, that nobody had done that yet, had just thrown out there that that's what he was and that's why he was doing it, you know.
Yeah,
especially when you talk about the very specific things he did.
Yeah,
which would be, you know, I mean, if one was to engage in necromancy most foul,
yes,
you would need, I guess, things for that,
yes.
you know, and pieces.
You require some offerings and some things and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, you need.
You don't get a zombie without a corpse. You don't get a demon without some blood. You don't, you know, you got to give something to get something.
To travel through space and time requires stuff.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing, you know? And that's also what Lloyd was doing.
Lloyd. Oh boy, Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Wow.
So
Lloyd was an amazing character. Like, you came up with this character, and I was just like, okay, something's off with Lloyd. And then it just kept going. I'm like, wow, yeah, something is way off with Lloyd. And I love Lloyd in this, especially that we just kind of sitting there like, well, you know, and it's like, wow, you did all of that just because, you know, he started off somewhere and everybody's like, he's kind of a weirdo, but, you know, we love him. He's just this nice guy, does everything. And then slowly sinking deeper and deeper into Lloyd's world, you just kind of go, what the fuck?
Well, you know, I mean, Lloyd.
Please don't tell me you knew a Lloyd. That would be weird.
Well, God, how it's like every line of decency, you know. How do you exactly do you, without doing spoilers and without, you know, breaking all laws of decency, explain Lloyd? So Lloyd's story is actually a true story.
Oh. Don't make me spit my wine.
So
wow.
This is not necessary to read the book or to understand, but people always get a kick out of it. So I lived in a neighborhood in Houston that was, shall we say, a grimy neighborhood. Either of y'all from Houston?
Been there, not from there.
Okay.
I'm Nebraska.
Oh, okay. So there's a neighborhood there that, let us just say, gives itself over to all manner of vice. And there was a particular establishment there that was of that variety, which gives itself over to vice. And apparently they had a little party there that went a little bit too far one time. And they ended up with a dead person. And they had to dispose of the dead person, so they put him in a barrel of acid in the back of a, you know, in the storage room of this nightclub, and they didn't realize that it would release this kind of cloud of gas, and that's how they would get caught with this dissolving body in a barrel full of acid.
Basic chemistry, folks. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're gonna kill somebody and hide the body, ask a horror author.
Yeah, don't use acid in your nightclub. So that's how they got found for killing that dude. And how they killed him was what they talk about in the book with the what happened to Lloyd. So yeah, that's
Okay.
so there is actually quite a bit of an element of truth to Lloyd.
Okay.
And I would say that Lloyd is definitely the most Clive Barker character I've ever read. And when all
Yeah.
this was happening was when I was in my Clive Barker phase at about age 17. So I was probably reading Wee World or
Great and Secret Show
Great and
is what
Secret
it
Show.
reminds me of.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so Lloyd is not actually a complete fabrication.
Okay.
Yeah.
That if you can see, I have Barker. A little bit of Bradbury, some Ramsey Campbell. I've got all sorts of stuff over here, but it's just like stacks of.
That
Yeah.
brings me to my question about Lucky. Your views on charisma is on point.
Yeah.
I loved you telling about how the presidents, Obama and Bush, are very charismatic people. Was there a person or a group of people that you had based him on?
So I think that I'll say yes to that. That for whatever reason, there's and I don't know if it's universal, if everybody's got one person like that they just can't say no to. That it's like they have a fucking remote control, and they can just hit the button and you'll say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about Lucky. That's what Lucky is. He is an ultra charismatic person who has a borderline supernatural aspect to it. That town that Elton and what lives on the island there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can attribute it to that, but it doesn't really matter. It's whether or not that is caused by that, or he was just already a supernaturally charismatic guy, because he talked about how his father and his grandfather had been tent revival guys in the South, actually holding serpents and doing the whole thing. Yeah. Maybe they already had it. Maybe some of that came from Grove Island. But either way, it happens. And I just think that there are charismatic people in the world who abuse it. And
very much so.
Yeah. And what can you really do in the face of that kind of charisma, that kind of persuasion? And sometimes, all you can do is put distance between yourself and it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know why. Sometimes certain people just have the ability to somehow over and over and over again walk you into harm's way, or walk off with your money, or walk off with whatever is really important to you. And somehow they do it again the next time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like you're just left wondering, how'd that happen? Yeah. And so, yeah, Lucky is kind of a case in point for that.
And he's definitely got the sociopath vibes too, for how he uses his powers and
mm-hmm.
such going on. The other thing I was going to ask about was the description of Elton and the UP area. Is that something that you've been to? Is that a reflection on something? Because you wrote it very well, how this dead town is portrayed.
So I had never been to the UP, but I got cousins in Michigan that I'm very close with, and they always described the UP as just it's an entire half of the state which is dedicated to the Twilight Zone. Everything about it. Have you guys ever been to Waco?
I have not.
Okay, Waco, if there is any place in the world that is like a nexus of the plains where weird shit fucking happens, it's Waco. I mean, just you can just, when you drive through, you can feel the weirdness. And I'm not just talking about David Koresh and all that. I worked there for a while, and the best way I can explain it is that there definitely had to be some kind of nexus of the plains somewhere in there, because sometimes you drive past down this one street and there'd be a road right there going off into some direction. Next time you drive down that same street, that road's not there. It's just gone. And so it was a weird summer, but so Waco and
Concentrated Ohio.
I'm not sure. I've never been to Ohio, but the UP, my cousins had always described this as this place where just, people went and to go crazy or were already crazy and went there, and that's just where they live. And it is one of the poorest places in America. It's one of the, in terms of, substance abuse, alcoholism in particular, one of the worst places. And it is just all of those things, but at the same time, might be one of the most beautiful places in the world. So I had one of my cousins had forwarded this article to me about wolves had reappeared in the UP and were just tearing just a bloody streak across this area of the state, just devouring everything in their path, like people's pets and livestock, and they're being wolves. And so it was the thing about, people out walking their dog and wolves just come up and eat it. And like reduced to fur and bones in a matter of seconds. And you're just like there with what had been your dog, and now is just a skeleton with some fur. So I thought about that, and I was thinking about the charisma thing, and all the pieces just came together. If that makes any sense, especially when I kind of threw into the mix that, because I had written The Immortal Body and Song of the Death God. And I thought, well, I'm going to write a standalone novel. So I wrote it, and then I reread, trying to remember the exact sequence, but I read On Writing by Stephen King, and, he talked about the importance of situation over plot. And he kind of posed this question of, well, what happens when a town gets taken over by vampires? And the answer was Salem Slot. So I thought, well, if Stephen King can do that, I can do that.
Yes. Yeah,
sure. Why not? What happens when a town gets taken over by werewolves? And a very long way around to that answer is Lucky's Girl. So, and that's the thing about cosmic horror. There's no random werewolf. There's a reason for those werewolves. And, look at
and it goes so far back to the those who are worshiping the Wendigo. But that's not going to ruin anything for anybody.
It's fine.
He's already talked about it in another interview. It's out. Everybody who has looked him up knows. So
yeah, but it's been for like thousands of years. That this, and if Wendigos are represented in the Cthulhu mythos as well as being this type of outer being. And so having them, I just loved what you did with it. It locked up in this tree and waiting, the way you used a bunch of different myths kind of together to pull out something that they probably didn't understand what they were worshiping initially anyway, but it worked for them at the time. So, okay, it was willing to let them do whatever the hell they wanted to do as long as they followed it and gave things up to it. They were like, it was like, okay, yeah, you guys are my peeps. All right, let's keep this going. Aw, shit, here come the white men. You know, it's kind of a thing in there. But I loved the just you're excellent at world building and very good at character creation as well. Like you were saying, there's no point in reading something without good characters, and you don't have any bad characters. There might be like one or two people that are mentioned on the side, but nothing really important might happen to them. But I was invested in so many people, and just like reading the past and the future, you know, jumping back in time, back and forth, and how they all related to each other and what ended up happening because of a big crisis event, you know, and then it breaks up and things come back to a different time. And the way that it worked in different people's heads and how they were all fucked with and how some remembered things very differently than others, you just still love everything that you're reading. Because it's like, this person can't relate to me because apparently to them, they don't know. They weren't in on what actually took place. So just everybody's little bits and pieces of, but I can't tell them because I was part of the disaster falling around. And so it was just gorgeous. Sorry, I'm just kind of squeeing and fangirling out here. You'd ask me which was my favorite, and I really can't tell you because they're two completely different books, but they're both amazing.
No, it's not easy to tell you our favorite, but it does lead to the question, are you a people observer or have you taken classes in psychology to get so good at getting into the different points of views and how they would actually think about it?
I am a high school dropout with a criminal record.
So you're a people observer and
I'm a people person.
Yeah, well, that's the only reason why I would say that, because you're really good at getting into their point of view, because they each have very wildly different ideas of why the thing happened.
Yeah.
And it takes some thought to keep it all straight.
It does. Now, one thing is, I'm not going to, say that this was all me. And this is going to sound a little bit iffy, metaphysical, whatever, but Stephen King says it too. So I'm going to get away with it. I think sometimes when you're writing a story, you're not writing a story, you're sort of dictating it as it plays out on some level somewhere. I don't know how those connections happen. I don't feel like I'm right enough to actually have made them happen myself. I feel like I'm just watching a movie and dictating what I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry Pratchett has a very similar thing about there are some people out there, there are ideas that just fly through the world constantly, and a lot of people they just don't hit. And then there are those people who attract them and they hit them and they just have to get them out. They have to get them done because stories want to be told,
I think so. There's some people that just can't not get hit by cars. It's like they've been hit by cars like 5 times. I mean, and I think it kind of like sometimes writing stories is kind of that way. You're just getting hit by cars and you're inheriting ideas from that. And I promise you I'm not high or anything like that.
No, you sound like you make sense, because you do make sense. And I also want to know, did you have a favorite piece of advice or something you learned from reading his books, from or of Stephen King's works?
It's all about prose. It is all about prose and making your prose as efficient as possible. Sure, get it all on paper and sound like Thomas Ligotti. But when you go into that editing booth, any word that gets in the way of that story moving forward has got to go. When I have a rough draft, it is a much more florally prosy thing with, Lovecraftian descriptions and whatnot. Most of that doesn't make it through. Most of it just, because there's a lot of embellishments there that don't actually move the story forward, I cut them off. And that is one place in which I do differ from a lot of my literary horror contemporaries. They allow a more floral prose. I don't know if I'm simply not that confident right now, but I do everything I can to make sure that there is nothing which stands in the way of the forward momentum of the story.
That makes sense. And you do a very efficient job at getting people to see where they're from, see the character, see the development of everything moving forward. You have done a great job with what you do.
See, here's the thing. As a writer, one of the most important tools that you have is your reader. Their imagination is going to be better than any series of words on a line. So if you paint with negative space and you make them fill in the blanks for you, you not only get to be a lazy fucker, you get to write a good story.
Oh yeah, and I know for a fact that Dell will have seen this story differently than I have, because I just automatically linked to Kenny in a way that I don't think she could because of my background with the people that works on oil rigs, them describing how it all works. I'm like, oh, he's like us. What happens next?
So that right there was my buddy Doug. He's a underwater welder on oil rigs. You guys got to go experience Houston sometime. It's like a toilet with.
No, I've been to Houston.
Oh, okay.
I've spent a lot of time in Houston. My kid's doctor is in Houston because she has heart defects.
Oh,
so yeah, it's not that I haven't been there. I just don't like to go there. I'd rather be here in Newton because it's nice and calm.
Yeah. and where are you, Friday?
I'm in Newton, Texas.
Oh, you're in Newton. Where is Newton, Texas?
It's I think I'm on the other side of Livingston from Houston.
Okay, so that's east. So you're like up by Beaumont?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm from Houston. I live north of Houston.
Okay.
I grew up in an area called Spring.
I've been there a lot. Granny used to live there.
Mm-hmm.
I think so my aunt still lives there.
So it was like back in the 80s. It was the most conservative area in America, rated by per capita membership in the Christian Coalition. And I think it's very possible that me and my friends caused the Satanic Panic.
That's something we haven't heard on here before.
So
no. It's elaborate, please.
Yeah, we want to know.
It's like it's 1987, and the dude with dyed black hair and the Slayer shirt, is like walking through the woods looking for something. I was walking through the woods trying to find those Satanists that everyone had told me about. But I think everyone was actually talking about me. So I may have. And also, I was a teenager, so there was some, and it was the 80s. That's always a perfect excuse for any sort of sociopathic behavior.
Definitely.
It was the 80s. So, so I think I may have caused the Satanic Panic. Not sure. But
anything's possible.
Anything's possible. I mean, we were really convinced that there was like a cabal of Satanists and that one day we would catch them.
Mm-hmm.
But the cabal of Satanists was probably us. So
y'all walking around dressed as you would be, and everybody mistakes what's actually happening for what was happening. What they think was happening. Yeah, I get the idea. It does make sense.
Yeah.
And were you disappointed that that this is going to sound really bad, but after I read like Go Ask Alice, and I, watched Mazes and Monsters and all of those other things, and had, been exposed to. We aren't really the Bible Belt, but I think we might hold a record on how many billboards that are like anti-abortion in a one stretch of area, and different things where it was like, aren't I supposed to check every sticker and something for acid? And isn't there, there's supposed to be drugs and Satanists everywhere. I don't see any. I'm out. Yeah, I was like you. I'm like, what are they? And it was just like, oh no, this doesn't happen. Like, I've grown up. I still haven't stepped in quicksand.
Neither have I.
Yeah,
I never did find that. Like you were saying, I never did find the cabal of people. I was told like, oh, there's this town near us named Blair, and everybody's like, oh, that's where all the Satanists live, and you don't want to go in there and stuff. And I'm like, my cousins live there, like my adult cousins, and it's fine. Like, they're not there. You got to find them somewhere else. And they're like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
Work in the gas station. Ooh, I'm scared of the gas station in Blair because the man who runs the satanic group is a gas station attendant.
He pumps gas.
This gives me great confidence in their
in the vast global power of the satanic conspiracy. Yeah.
Life is not what they prepared us for, and it's sad.
It wasn't. But there's always horror to make up for that.
Oh yeah, and that's why I'm grateful for you both and your horror stories.
Well, thank you.
So beyond those stories writing themselves, do you also find your characters every now and then just being like, no, fuck you, that's not what I do. This is what I do. I'm not going to do that.
I think so. I mean, I think that, and this is probably contradicting everything I said earlier, but, consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. So what I also think about writing is that it's like dreaming. Okay. In your dream, you are apparently every character in your dream. So maybe writing is just like that. At least to some degree, every character is you, and you're just kind of dreaming onto the page. Something like that.
Nice. I like that analogy.
That makes sense.
Does that work?
That makes sense. It goes along the line of Stephen King's hallucinations while he was dreaming. And please ignore the cat that's having a fight over there.
Oh, okay. I have a geriatric, really annoying cat. He is luckily sleeping right now, but he does this groaning, howling thing that is just, and he does it at 5 a.m. every day. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
This is the first time the cat has decided to do this, and I have no idea what's going on because I can't see it.
Otto is like, are you talking about cats? Is it my turn? Shall I be on the show? Yes. She joins us a lot.
Have another question about something totally different, but on point with everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you made a decision about where you want to put your Singularity Cycle series yet?
Nope.
Okay.
So have you read it?
No, I found it, and it makes me sad because Del said we must read all his books, and I'm like, I'm working on it. Okay. There's just this slight problem where they're not out yet, and you said you would put them out when you found a place. But I realize it's probably a very short time since that interview to have made a decision.
Well, so they were with a publisher and a friend of mine, and we kind of mutually agreed that, look, this arrangement probably isn't actually right for either of us. And so that's why they're no longer in print.
Okay.
I want to either find a publisher who will work with me or do it self-published, like Adam Neville does. And the only problem is I've got to write the 4th book. So I've got the first 2, which were previously published. They're completely written. The third one is written and has, went through a first pass of editing. But I need to write that fourth book, and then I need to either put them out myself uh, or get just the right publisher for it. I gotta admit it. I am probably no fun to work with. I am high maintenance. I am annoying. I ask stupid questions all day. And
I'm hoping none of mine have been.
no. You guys make perfect sense. I'm over here indecipherable. But yeah, I'm a real stickler for artwork. It's got to be just right, and it was one of the reasons why with my old publisher it didn't really work, because we had very different ideas about artwork, and I hate the term, but I'm kind of art school when it comes to that, as much as no art school would accept me. I'm a little bit art school when it comes to the cover art on my books. It's just got to be a certain way. It's got to have it's got to. And that's one thing I'm really happy about Weird House, is they allowed the artwork. And I found that piece of art and I had to have it. I tracked down the artist in Russia and I got it, and had to wire money to a bank in Turkey, and it was weird, but either way. But yeah, it's to me, a book has got to be not just a book. It's kind of got to be an art object for it to really, really, grab me. I don't even read Thomas Ligotti, and I still bought the super duper edition. I haven't even taken it out of the thing. I just bought it anyways because it looks cool. Maybe one day I'll really start to get Ligotti, but
I bought a book cover 2 or 3 years ago that I still have the artist holding on. I got all the rights for it, but I haven't finished the book for it yet. So I know exactly. Like you see something, you're like, I must own this. This is mine. Yeah. And various artists that I've seen since that, I'm like, that's the only person that could possibly do justice to this particular story or thing. So I'm going to have to get that if I can. And so I have to save a lot of money because I know how much artists charge, but I'm willing to pay that because it has to be that way, It
has to. So hang on one second. So I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. I'll try to show you.
I can zoom in on you.
Yes.
And for everybody, forgive the little background noises I have going on. I have somebody walking in and out. So
can you see this guy right here?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the immortal body. I actually kind of came up with the concept for the artwork myself. And I had an artist here in town, a guy named John Zig. He's a death metal artist. Did that for me. And I don't have with me right now an example of what the artwork for Song of the Death God looks like, but I found a black metal artist in Europe who did that. And what's really cool is that he kind of went on to become pretty famous. Like, are you familiar with a band called Ghost?
No, I've heard of them, but I'm not experienced in them. If that makes, I listen.
Yeah, he does the artwork for Ghost, which it's a big band in Europe, and also like Behemoth, and I think he's done Watain, if you're familiar with Watain. These are black metal bands, but yeah, he did all that, and it is really cool. But it's like the previous publisher is like, this is an art project, dude. you need to have we need to have some artwork on there that people understand. So, which I completely get his point, because I am very, very high maintenance and, like I said, annoying, and I'm just a stickler for things. And long way of saying that it will be out hopefully this year, at least the first 3 books, and that's my hope. I don't know if it'll be with a publisher or if it'll be self-pubbed. I could self-pub The Immortal Body and Song of the Death God probably tomorrow, but I want to have everything kind of situated that I put the first 2 and the 3rd one out at the same time to generate buzz for the 4th one and generate demand for it, and that.
Is that
So that right there is the artist. It was the artwork that went with the previous publisher. Let me see if I can find an example of this real quick.
Sorry, it took me a second to transfer from my phone to the computer.
Friday's all over it.
Okay, I don't think
Hey,
I'm going to be able to find an example of that right now. But maybe I will.
It sounds like they're doing you good at Weird House, though.
Yeah,
When you have your art and stuff. And they have some great stuff that's come out of there with some fabulous artwork as well. I love the artists that Curtis gets.
Curtis' book is so cool looking. Yeah. It's so cool looking. And the fact that they've got Donald Tyson roster, that's the guy that, like, I hadn't written anything in 10 years. And then I read Al Hazred by Donald Tyson, and then I just started writing. And
it's one I haven't checked out yet from there. You constantly will see on my feed, now that we're friends, like, look what showed up in the mail today, and there'll be a different publisher thing. But Weird House is one of the ones that shows up very frequently in my mailbox, because wow,
they are awesome.
They are awesome, and they have great taste. They got you, so yeah.
Now, on that subject, Journal Stone. Journal Stone is published Blackwood Estates and the Abyssal Plane.
Okay.
So the artist for Blackwood, a guy named Don, he just, as far as I'm concerned, he just knocked it out of the park, and I had no idea he was going to do that good. I came up with this, like, sort of rough that looks like a 3-year-old drew it, because I'm really bad at drawing things, and I gave it to him, and he just did it. And I mean, maybe it's in poor taste when you realize what the Black Widow spider is all about, but you know what, man? He really, really knocked it out of the park with that. Did you guys like the Black Widows?
I did. I don't know if, I was just like,
wow.
Okay, now they're
nightmarish, and yeah.
And for the Abyssal Plane, there's they got an artist named Mikio Murakami, I believe is his last name, and he did that Cthulhu, and I had just kind of thrown some rough ideas their way, and man, he just knocked it out of the park. So we're going to be doing another. That's a series. Going to be a series. Nice. The Abyssal Plane. Well, the Relia cycle, rather. And we got the next one of that coming out in March. So 4 really cool novellas. One by myself. One by Curtis, and that's all I can say. But they are all done, and it is really going to be cool. We're, before we get that out, I will put out. I'm going to put another group of 4 writers together to do a 3rd one. So that'll be cool. And
I'll audition.
That's
what I write.
there are possibilities. So yeah, it's that's going to happen. So next year may be busy for me. It's just kind of depends on how the stars align. I've got a couple other books I'm working on right now, which, um, if they may have to write on my gravestone that I was way more ambitious than I am capable. But so I've got two books which are roughly halfway done. One is called "My Name Is Ruin," after the Gary Newman song. And the other one is called "Never Let Me Down Again," after the Depeche Mode song. Um, and those are definitely cosmic in some really off the wall ways in which they are cosmic. But I really do feel like it really does work. Yeah. But to say that these books are ambitious is probably an understatement.
Yeah.
My I am fairly certain when it gets put out, the reviews will be like, this guy is like the dog that chases a car and actually caught it. So, what do you do when you actually you get a mouthful of bumper? You're like, oh, finally. And then the car takes off. So yeah, those two books are probably too ambitious for my own good.
They're still worth doing.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna.
I'll read them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm be getting some more stuff here. So I have to save up money. Oh my God. Since we started doing this and I've been meeting all of these new authors, and it's just been like, okay, what all can I get my hands on? What can I buy? What can I do? What can I afford to get in this format? What can I afford to get in this format? We're doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I cut back on buying books because I was like, okay, I'll get Kindle editions of most things. And then I'll just, instead of filling up my bookcases, which can't take it anymore, they're like literally sagging and dropping, and they have the books are back on the shelf. Then there's another row of books in front of those row of books, and the books are stacked on top of the rows of books, a couple deep. And then I have
rows.
Yeah, I have the multiple rows of rows, and then stacks, and then just stacks like over here and in my bedroom and in boxes all over the place. I have a lot of bookshelves. They just cannot hold. I have well over 1,000 books just hanging out. But my closet is starting to get full because I've been buying all of these first edition lettered autographed copies by so-and-so that I take out and I show them to people, and I take pictures of the autograph and I give them a smell and a hug, and then I put them back in the bubble wrap, buy the Kindle version to actually read, and then tuck them into my closet. Now I have this pile in my closet of all these different books that I can't afford. I smoke, so I don't want them on my shelves,
There's
so, yeah. So I'm waiting until I can afford to move out of here because I've been here for too long. But so I can get a place with bigger bookshelves and get some glass case shelves so I can display all of the good books that I have, because I have everything from independent authors to some autographed Clive Barker stuff that's out. And it's I wasn't going to ever be the person that spent that much on a book, but it's only $150. Okay, PayPal lets me pay over payments. I can do that. So it's okay, that one book was my book budget for the next 2 months, but this month I can afford to get two from somebody else. Yeah.
So my dad is a bibliophile. He had to build basically another house to keep his library.
I love your dad already.
Yeah.
Mine are in boxes in storage because I have to have the place for the people and not the books. So yeah,
I don't have
I
people.
totally get the idea. I have 6 other people here I have to have a place for, so and 3 of them I made.
Yeah, I don't have people anymore, and I've decided that I'm pretty much better off on my own, because then I don't have people looking to put things in places where I need space for books or comics or something like that. Like,
Right on.
it's just, I mean, they aren't more important than the people so much, but they need better care than the people.
Yeah.
I'm kind of high maintenance too.
Yeah. It's books and vinyl records, man. It's a religion. It's an expensive religion.
I have one vinyl right now because I didn't have a record player, and Uncle Necro here on our network came up one time and he got me. He was going through a record store and he saw a symbol that he recognized, and it was one of the Wardruna albums. And so he picked that up for me, and then he brought it to me because we used to do pub nights. And he brought it to me with a Blu-ray record player.
Oh.
But I couldn't get it to work. So I have it like tucked up because it's a neat, like, I can never show off my tattoo because of the way it is, but it's the two ravens with the Wardruna symbol on them. I can't do it right.
Wardruna, like the band Wardruna.
Yeah, it's
okay, cool. Yeah.
It's the tattoo from their album cover for Kvetraven that came out during the pandemic. But that's one of the two tattoos that I have right now. And they're just really hard to show with the microphone. I'm just going to take a picture of them and like put them in the notes and be like, my tattoo, you know, and show everybody. Because I'm always like, this is the back of my arm. What do you think, guys? But I don't know, if I started collecting vinyl too, that would just.
It's like a one-way ticket to like abysmal poverty, you know.
I added comic books in again, and that's just been like, oh dear.
Yeah.
I've got so much bubble wrap in my house.
Oh Lord. Yeah. Oh well, you know, I'm growing my hair out long enough. I'm going to sell it to make a wig so I can buy more books.
Oh yeah. I have over 3.5 feet going here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a joke we used to have that my hair has its own contract with the network because it has to be
all the hair. I got get rid of all mine, so it all works.
Right on. Basically I grow my hair out till it's long, and then I shave my head, and I do it again and shave it again, and it's been kind of going on that way for about 20 years now. You know.
Well, you have quite the dapper photo though for your author photo.
Do you like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up here real quick. It made me think there is an H.P. Lovecraft photo that is very, very similar to this, and I was wondering if that was what you were aiming for.
It's Lovecraft
and Rod Serling.
And Rod Serling, yes. Yeah.
Yay! I got it right.
I'm being a bit too transparent with that, but yeah, it was. Yeah, it's Lovecraft and Rod Serling.
It looks good though. I like it.
That just means you have taste.
Now I forgot his name. I'm gonna have to. I said it earlier, so. I mean, because you reminded me in that picture of somebody, a specific actor, and it's the guy who played Sylar on Heroes, and he was also he plays Spock right now in the newer stuff.
Darn it.
Zachary Quinto.
Really?
Yeah, that's what that picture reminds me of. It's got a bit of his, like the way he looked when he played Sylar.
That's cool. And I never thought about it.
So that I was like, okay, we're gonna meet Jeffrey Quinto.
Right on.
I like that. So
that dude is definitely cooler than I am. So that's cool.
No, you guys are about on the same level. We see his on the screen. We get to read yours on our Kindle. So
okay,
it levels out.
And hug them and put them in our closet, for
I'll take it. Sure.
future display.
Did you use your charisma when you were playing D&D? And what was your favorite character to play?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I was like in probably the 4th grade.
Wow, that far back?
Oh yeah, this
Nice.
would have been like 80, 83, something like that. Trying to remember what my character's name was.
Well, that's just ridiculous. You're a terrible nerd.
I know.
I mean, in the last 12 years, so it was easier to remember. Luminara.
Yeah. See, I'm not really a very good nerd when it comes down. I mean, if there's like a nerd like chart, I'm sure
check different boxes than others.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, do I
There's
really
the thing called a Lovecraftian nerd?
Have you ever been able to pick out H.P. Lovecraft fans just by speaking to them for like 10 minutes out of like somebody you've never met before? Because like this is weird.
Some of them give it away like in the first couple seconds.
I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and this happened to me once. I was at one of my local bars, and there were some people in from out of town, and we'd all stepped outside. You could smoke in there, but we'd all stepped outside just to get some air and have a smoke. And there were a couple of guys that were from out on the East Coast, and we were talking for just a very short period of time. And literature, none of that was brought up. And I was just like, "You're an H.P. Lovecraft fan, aren't you?" And they were just like, "Yeah, how did you know?" And they like were from Salem, and it was just like, they're like, we don't really talk about it that much there. It's kind of frowned upon in some circles. It's like, it's odd. You'd think it would be looked up upon since he was from that area. But I mean, I guess, depending on the love the art, hate the artist, or forgive the art, whatever you do, some of his views kind of thing. That might have been what it was they were talking about, which at that point I wasn't that aware of all of that, but go on. I'm sorry. I like interrupted, like asking a question, then I interrupt you as you're trying to answer it.
Some of the Lovecraft nerds give it away like right up front. I've worked for pretty much the last 20 years at software companies, and there is a certain kind of nerd that works at these kinds of companies that there's no dressing them up and taking them out. They are just nerds. And they'll tell you, like, they'll use the first sentence contains the phrase "the Great Cthulhu" or something like that, and they're wearing a kilt, and
I know these people so well.
Yeah,
I them my friends.
Well, software companies, man. It's there was this article that came out like a couple years back that talked about why women don't want to work at certain companies, and it was literally because of guys like that. It was just
that's like my dream job. Like if I knew what the fuck I was doing. Yeah. I'm with my people. I have found my tribe.
Right. But we nerds, we are the exception. We shall inherit the earth, or at least chilies. I don't know, something.
At least the things that live deep, deep, deep down in the ocean. Mm-hmm. We get those.
You get those.
I don't want chilies. I'm okay without chilies.
Oh yeah. The deep sea creatures, those of the absolute dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are
way back. I've had to change it because somehow it got hacked and found out. And so this is utterly ridiculous. But my password to a lot of things, and I can say it now because it is no longer my password things, but it was with various numbers and characters substituted into it. Kill them all and let Cthulhu sort it out.
Awesome.
So that was, people wouldn't guess probably the right letters and numbers or whatever to put in it, but it was like, I can't believe I had to give up that password because I was alerted that somebody figured it out.
It takes a certain type of person to figure that out, though.
Yeah, it was like you've had somebody log. I'm like, what? How in the hell did they do that?
I'm not gonna say, because I guess my passwords lack a certain requisite imagination, so I'm just gonna keep quiet about that. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's like 36 characters long or something like that, so it wasn't usable on all places. But I'm like, I just write sentences about various Lovecraftian beings as my passwords for things because it's easy for me to remember, at least.
So who is your favorite Lovecraftian baddie?
Nyarlathotep.
Me too.
He's the one that I get all goo-goo-eyed over and like go, wow, you are so horrible, but you relate to humans so well. And I'm actually working on something about him right now for a submission. And if you don't mind me, just a little bit, it's like he has, he's going around trying to do Azathoth's being his wants, but he's, the battling mad god of darkness in the outer plane. But he's trying to kind of keep him asleep so that he can continue hanging around and playing with humans, because he doesn't necessarily like them, but they're a fun medium. They're better than, the like some of the not so intelligent creatures, because he can give them hope and give them intelligence and play with them and then take it away and watch them fall and withdraw from things. So he can guide and play with humans, and they're a lot much more fun to play with than deep ones or Shoggoths, and stuff like that. So that's why he helps out every now and then when there are the other gods that are like, oh, like he represents himself, he represents his dad, he represents a couple other people because, oh, they're going to fuck with him this way? I'm going to get in on that. That's going to be some great times. So that's kind of my view on him, is that he just really loves to play with everybody, and I love it.
So there was a moment in the last episode of Loki,
okay,
where I could swear they pulled it from Nyarlathotep, the story. I mean, maybe that's just me being too much of a dork to relate even to Marvel, but it really looked like exactly, the kind of explication on this person doing this demonstration of electricity and all that stuff. And it was exactly that. And the audience not knowing what to do with what they saw. And so it makes me think they pulled that straight from Nyarlathotep. But I'll have to watch the new Rockstar video. We'll see. Did you see it?
No, not yet. I'm just saying it's very possible with Loki. He does all sorts of interesting things.
Oh, God. Loki's my favorite. Best superhero ever.
Yes.
Yeah. And they cross worlds a lot in there. And I love, now how do you pronounce, I used to pronounce it, and it's partially because it worked out in some really weird poetry that I was doing. I was doing limericks and Cthulhu haiku for a while. And so I called it Arlia. But you call it Railia? Or how did you pronounce it? I mean, like, we're all guessing at this point, I think. But how do you say it?
It's, you'd probably have to ask like St. Joshi or somebody like that to really know for sure. But I just say Relia.
Relia. Okay. I also like doing the like, or you know how they have the oh really things with the owl, or it's ORLY. I like putting up a Cthulhu with or with that. Oh, Relia.
Really? Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned him, and he's been mentioned by a couple people. In fact, I was listening to, I've been listening to some of Curtis's audio stuff because there was a huge sale on Audible that Friday alerted us to, where a bunch of his stuff, the audiobooks were on sale. And so were the, you know how you can add the narration on the Whisper Sync or whatever on Kindle. So if you own the Kindle book, you could just buy the Audible narration to go with it for much, much cheaper than paying for the book. And that was even like 60% off of what it would normally be, which was awesome. And there was an introduction that was by S.T. Joshi. And I know that Christopher Curtis talks about him a lot. So is he the... I don't know that much about him other than everybody loves him.
Well, he's he's H.P. Lovecraft's biographer. So Lovecraft has had a couple biographers through the years.
Derleth is the one I'm mostly used to.
Yeah, Derleth.
Which there's a big controversy there too, though.
Yeah. There's opinions are split on Derleth. I am pro Derleth. I really like The Lurker at the Threshold. I thought that they did a fantastic job on that one. I think that is actually a genuinely frightening story. And that is, if I am not mistaken, halfway Derleth, So, but what is that his, like in the 50s? I know the name. Hang on one second. Lynn Carter. Yeah, he was a sci-fi guy.
Yes. No, Lynn Carter.
First it was Lynn Carter, and Lynn Carter passed away, and then now it's S.T. Joshi. And Joshi is he's like a legit academic scholar and all that. And he's the guy who actually knows how to pronounce things. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
I felt really bad. This is kind of slightly off the subject, but it going back to you starting the Satanic Panic, there was a gentleman on Reddit once, and it was a high school English teacher who had set out assignments for somebody for his class, high school level class, and could not understand. He was like, I think he brought it onto like cryptology or something like that. Like, can anyone understand? I do not know what this language is. I cannot understand what this child is saying. But he included this couple paragraphs of something on the most recent essay that I asked them to write. And so there's an Arlian, whatever it is, dictionary online and translators. There are tons of them. So you can go through. If you actually want to take the time to learn it instead of just typing it into the translator, it has it broken down into different forms and how the words conjugate and all the different meanings and stuff everything takes. But I just did a quick breakdown of it through the translator. And it was basically this kid, from the way it sounded, being like, I'm working very hard at learning how to write like this. I don't want to fail. I want to impress you. And a couple things like that, basically. But written in a, how good he was at it versus how good the translation was at it, and a couple other people all commented as well. We were like, yeah, it's actually, how many people recognize that, by the way? Oh, I know exactly what language that is. It's this made up one. And go off and start like, let me pull up. I can translate that for you here in a heartbeat. There were a lot of us, oddly enough. And, but the teacher ended up reporting him to the counselors and thought that there was something seriously wrong with him because he would try to write in this language. I mean, I bet if it was Tolkien's Elvish, it wouldn't have been a problem, but he wrote it in Arlian, which means that he likes horror and therefore there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And we're like, he's really just trying to impress you. He's not he's not being threatening. He's not writing anything about self-harm or anything like that. He's just stating that he admires you as a teacher. He wants to impress you and hopes that he can find a way to. And you're sending him to therapy for that. So that kind of sucks.
And that's current day thing?
That was within the past 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I can't remember exactly when, but it was during, So I was just like, man.
That's because there's a difference between being full Trekkie and knowing Legion and Klingon and what we do.
Yeah.
And that is why we're bad, but they're not. But it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Klaatu, Verada, Nikto is a universal. And you know, it's weird. It's like people say, "Oh, sci-fi, fantasy, good, wholesome." You know, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, good. I'm sorry, but Tolkien clearly fucking read Lovecraft. Clearly, I mean, I don't know if C.S. Lewis did, but I think C.S. Lewis, you know,
he was very obsessed with his version of Jesus.
Yeah, but I also think that he also had a very, very cool surrealist thing about him as well. And and when they were writing, you know, things were
I am not insulting him. I
yeah,
read the books in school, got in trouble for reading the books, but there's a difference between having the thought of him being obsessed with the idea and seeing it as a bad thing.
Right.
Because I'm not saying his views on any of his work on how he put it out there was wrong, but also why it's different is bad.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to differentiate between which was more controversial of him to do between the Screwtape letters and what happened with Susan. And at the very end of the Chronicles of Narnia, because and Gaiman actually wrote a story about it, and it was called like The Trouble with Susan or something like that. And
you're gonna have to refresh my memory because it's been a long.
Okay, the four Pevensey children that were the first High Kings and High Queens of Narnia.
Yeah.
When they grow up, in the end, there is a train wreck, and Peter, Edmund, and Lucy all go on to Aslan's, the above and beyond, and Susan doesn't die, but she is no longer, and she is no longer a friend of Narnia because she got interested in lipstick and nylons and boys. And so it's a very like, okay, is he trying to say that just because she was, having, and I'm getting into a discussion here, I probably shouldn't have gone too far, I won't go too far into, but because she was experiencing the normal things that a girl her age goes through and the temptations and things, it's not, I'm sure if you'd given her a choice, she would have chosen, but she wasn't given the option. It was just, she liked those things, therefore she was no longer a friend of Narnia. But
it could be like some kind of sexist thing, but on the other hand, it could be kind of a digression on that she became mundane in the sense of the term, she became of the world,
Yeah.
Mundane meaning, the world.
Yeah. She became too into earth.
So yeah. It's maybe it's that she, in parlance of today, is that she sold out.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, he could have just been being kind of a sexist jerk, but
or some sort of warning that just went wrong and didn't really work out, but he left it in anyway because
he didn't stick the landing.
Most people would accept it.
Yeah.
Those were, I grew up, I was reading those when I was 5. I loved those books, and then got older and older and read more and more and more of his stuff. It's, I agree that I think a lot of authors, even if they don't care for it, I think most authors since his time have at least read some Lovecraft just to get the experience of it and to understand what particular pull it has, because it definitely has that weird draw. And even if they don't incorporate it so much into their own writing, they need to understand what it is, what cosmic horror is, that eternal thing, the aloneness thing. Curtis writes, I'm saying that you write a lot. You have the eternal, the loneliness, the emptiness. Curtis writes a lot about the unbeing of things that want to take form but can't. The the unness of stuff is one of the things that I really enjoy about a lot of his writing. Things that are shifting and trying to become.
Blackheart's Boys Choir.
That's what I'm listening to right now.
Is just a brilliant. It's like Clive Barker worthy material, and it is just so off the wall, so unexpected, so out of the blue that would be the premise of your horror novel. But he knocks it out of the park with that. That man is an artist.
Oh, we had him on to talk about that. Guys, we're going to be fixing all the links since Weird House just updated, but very soon we will have all the Weird House links fixed again on our website and on the YouTube, and you can look up. We did kind of interview him partially about that, and have links to that for him as well. But Blackheart Boys Choir was fabulous. Yeah, and I'm listening to the Audible version, which I never did before because I'd read the book, and I listen to different audio things at night. And the way he has designed the way it goes audibly, because there's Lucien's main point of view, there's Lucien's hallucinations, there's musical stuff going on, and there's regular story. And the way that the Audible has it going is there's the voices of the people, there's Lucien's main voice, there's an echo set back voice of everything that he's hallucinating or imagining going on, that jumps back and forth between what's really going on, and it'll pop in and out. And then there are strains of music that will just pop in here and there. It's gorgeous. I've never heard anything like it. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I usually listen to something to fall asleep to, and I don't fall asleep because I'm like, okay, I've read this book, I know everything about this book, but I want to hear how they did it this way. It's great. Do you have anything out on Audible, by the way?
Yes, The Abyssal Plane is out there on Audible.
Awesome.
Yeah, as far as I know, that is the only thing, though.
The only thing I found on Audible of yours, yes. But usually, if you're put on Audible, you know about it ahead of time.
I that's the only one I know about. If there's other stuff out there, I don't know. I was actually thinking about, like, because I've been practicing reading stuff out loud, like just doing my own. But
yeah, it is doable and it can be done. And plenty of authors have rocked their writing on Audible.
I think Steve Van Samson did it. Oh wait, I'm on Owlite. Steve Van Samson did it. We have ongoing joke thing. Raz. I have to say it that way. Raz won't let me get by without announcing him that way because I did it once, so it has become the official way. It's a joke that I've introduced him more than anybody else because I've had him on shows on multiple networks, and so I just keep talking about him. But I'll have to check out your stuff on Audible. But yeah, doing it yourself, I usually really enjoy when an author reads their work. Gaiman is great at it. Barker is great at it. Then I've heard some others where you're just like, yeah, wow, you should hire somebody.
Well,
you write really well, but you don't talk at all.
Yeah, you got a voice for writing.
Yeah, and some of my stuff too, though, because of different accents and things like that, I wouldn't dare try to read some of my own things because I don't have the accent at all, and I don't want to, and it's important, but
when I read out loud, I don't know why, but I for some reason it's like involuntary. I sound like, I don't know, like, God, this is embarrassing. Like Matthew McConaughey with a head injury. Yeah, it's.
You have me curious. I want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, you did say you would do some reading for us tonight, and we would also like to invite you to join us at any point in time when we do an Owlite Society gathering, and that's one of our Sunday rotational shows. It's like a virtual campfire. We grab a bunch of people who are storytellers, and sometimes we pick a theme, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just whatever, and people can either, all right.
All right.
We both had the same idea at the same time.
we're clicking. But yes, and it's you can either read something or read something of your own. If there's something very important to you that's in the public domain that you want to share, you can do that. Otherwise, you can also just tell stories. We've had a lot of people just tell real stories of what's happened to them. But if you'd like to join us, you are more than welcome. We love having people on to tell stories.
Okay, well, I am flipping between what just happened there. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. So let me see if I can switch this thing back. We'll see. If I get disconnected, I am so sorry. I don't know what malign spirits have appropriated my gear, but we're about to find out.
All right.
How would that even work? Okay, just one more moment.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready, because I'm going to zoom on you, because we do cuts of these afterwards, and that way people can watch just the reading part if they feel like just hearing stories. So.
Okay. So I have two things I could read from here. I'll just go with I'll just go with the eruption of teeth.
Okay.
As the reading, it's a little bit longer. It's probably going to be about 10, 15 minutes. Is that okay?
That is wonderful.
When do you want me to start?
Now would be perfect.
All righty. And forgive me, I haven't really done this before, but this is my first shot at this sort of thing. So we'll just see how it works.
All right.
About 2 weeks later, on the I-10 headed west through Texas towards Fort Stockton, about 50 miles past Junction, Stephen found the tiny town of Saldano. This town must have been something more important in the past, like so many other little places, unimportant enough for a marker on a map. There was a big truck stop on the interstate and a road behind it with a little sign that said Saldano, 1 mile. That's where the planchette pointed. But a half a mile in, he knew he was late party. An old red Camino impaled an equally old station wagon, a tan Caprice Classic. His mom drove one back when he was a kid. He crouched down to look at the elderly Hispanic men dead behind the wheel of the Caprice Classic, probably in his 70s, wearing nothing but his underwear, a shotgun on the passenger side floor, shells strewn about. A huge black circular bruise covered his chest. He wasn't wearing his seatbelt when the El Camino hit, and the force crushed him against the steering wheel. He walked over to the El Camino to find an equally old Hispanic woman, face a mass of blood, head caved in, a spider web spreading from the point where her forehead met the windshield, a hairy knot of scalp stuck to the center. The contents of her purse lay around the front seat and floor. Stephen reached in his pocket for a bandana and took her driver's license from the wallet in her lap. Hortensia Chavez, born 1958. A little picture showed a little old Hispanic couple sitting on a little love seat. The man in the El Camino was her husband, Roberto. They had a son named Victor, smiling in Marine Corps blue, waving from the deck of a big gray ship. A daughter named Myra, married to a smiling man in a cowboy hat with 3 little kids in church clothes. Roberto, Hortensia, Myra, and husband smiling with a Catholic priest holding a crying baby at a baptism. He looked down the road toward Saldano. He looked back to the direction he came in. No procession of cop cars in the distance, just the highway and the giant blue Texas sky. Tiny sob shook his chest. A tiny sob shook his chest. These people had been happy. They were poor, dirt poor, but they were happy, or they had been. He got in his truck and drove in, just a junction of Farm Road and Main Street. There was an old-fashioned gas station with a single pump. He pulled to the edge of the parking lot and let it idle. He turned the key and the engine stopped. He rolled down the window. Nothing. He couldn't hear that horrible ringing, grinding static noise he'd heard in Blanton, that same sound the Fed had asked him about. There were few trees out here heading into West Texas, and it was daytime, so no lights in the trees. kept one eye on the glass front door of the gas station, reached behind his seat and pulled out the chessboard and placed the planchette and compass next to it. The planchette vibrated, then rotated. The compass went haywire and set on north. The planchette pointed east. Whatever happened in the tiny town of Saldana was over. Stephen swallowed hard and steeled himself. He crossed the parking lot to the glass door of the gas station. Just 2 old freezers and a couple rack of daily goods. It had been looted. Stephen nodded. That was the best approximation. He'd seen pictures of looted stores during rioting in big cities, and that's what matched. Somehow in Saldana, the one store had been looted. They took all the alcohol and shot the teenage boy behind the counter. And then they wrote a message on the floor in his blood for their posterity. Manuel Cuellar traja el diablo. He thought about it and tried to translate. It said, roughly, Manuel Cuellar brought the devil. Is the boy behind the counter Manuel Cuellar? Stephen took a deep breath and walked behind the counter, crouching down and rolling the boy over for the wallet in his back pocket, covering his fingers with the bandana. No, this boy is named David Garza. He looked into a display case of cigarettes. About half of those had been looted too. Alcohol and cigarettes. What mindless mobs seek. Stephen Wilder had never even considered mobs forming up in little towns like Blanton, Georgia, or Saldana, Texas. Not until very recently. He looked to the phone, and yes, there was a phone book. These didn't get much use these days, but maybe it was different in tiny little towns. The old Main Street had seen better days. Just 2 blocks of old, square, red brick buildings. There was even a little old movie theater. None had been occupied in decades. Not even an antique shop. This was not that sort of small town. 2 or 3 streets paralleled Main Street, mostly empty lots. Few old houses, few dilapidated trailers. About half seemed inhabited. The second street back had just 4 trailers, all recently occupied, but not a soul to be seen. The third belonged to David and Patricia Cuellar. Stephen suspected the leg sticking out of a patch of scrubby bushes belonged to Patricia. He steeled himself and got out of his truck and walked over to the bushes. She'd been shot through the back and landed face down. Her hands were tied behind her with a cruel arrangement of Christmas lights. The front door of the trailer was torn off its hinges, and there was a path trampled through an assortment of terracotta planters. She'd run straight to the front door and made it halfway across the yard before ending up in those bushes. He whispered, I'm so sorry, and carefully rolled her over. He ran to his truck and vomited in the shade. He slid down the side and looked up at the sun as the tears came. Patricia was missing her face. It had been peeled off. He looked at his hands. They shook like he'd never seen before. Up until he'd found the planchette, the only dead person he'd ever seen was his grandmother in her casket. But Stephen cried for more than the people whose lives had been snuffed for no sane reason or explanation. He cried for himself. He'd lost his life. He'd wasted it. For the past few years, the truth had begun to take it. The magic, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he'd see past the wall of the mundane drained away, leaving nothing but the deep knowing that there was no discovery to be made. It was bullshit, and he was a contemptible fool. Every woman who had ever laughed in his face had been right. His parents had been right. The friends who stopped talking to him years ago had been right. He could have had a family, a wife, and children, birthdays, weddings, graduations, a house, and a career. But no, he'd thrown it all away for the flimsiest of delusions. And here he was because of the disasters he'd chosen. He stood, wiped the tears from his face, and walked in the trailer. David Cuellar died a terrible death, cruelly inflicted by his own hand. Slowly and surely, mechanically and ritualistically, he created an altar of suffering. Did the whole town of Saldana hear his screams? Did he beg them for deliverance? He'd used all his tools. He could hear the scream of saw and uncomprehending agony, and so many other things. Torn asunder and reintegrated, nails, things nailed to the ceiling. David and Patricia took their daughter in after an ugly divorce, and her 2 young children. There was a buzz of flies that almost formed words.
Bravo, sir. And where can we find this?
Oh, this isn't out yet. This is a story called The Eruption of Teeth. which I might change to 1,000 Miles from Nowhere, like the Dwight Yoakam song.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So this one is sort of the big bad in it is could be sort of interpreted as a incarnation manifestation of Nyarlathotep. You never really know because there's fuck all you can do about it anyways. So, and I never use the word Nyarlathotep. But I think some people may derive that from this, that the Black Hat Man is Nyarlathotep.
That's a nod. Yes.
Not certain.
Not an entirely. This is who it is, because there's also the Shadow Black Hat Man, But
is there something else called a Black Hat Man?
yeah, there's the Shadow People. One of the most famous and most seen is the one who wears. I don't know that he's the Black Hat Man, but since they're all Shadow People, he wears a hat.
Two versions of the Black Hat Man. One that's tall, shadowy, and you don't generally interact with, and the short one with teeth that actually leaves bite marks.
Okay, are these like what happens when you smoke DMT?
No, these have been seen by millions of people around the world.
It's one of those things. They tie it into, a lot of times they will try to tie it in with it's sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
But it's weird that so many millions of people have the exact same vision during their sleep paralysis, even if they've never heard of it before. They'll go in and describe this, and it's like, oh yeah, well, that's your sleep paralysis. And somebody was like, what if sleep paralysis is just an excuse for those? I mean, we don't know.
Apparently there's also similar things that happen when you smoke DMT, like large, like when you go too far, like you have gone too far, you actually apparently meet the elves and the aliens and shit. So I've never done it myself, but I'd sure like to try.
I'm the idiot here. What's DMT? I don't even know.
It's a hallucinogen. It's a very, very, very powerful hallucinogen. It's like, but it's not like acid that lasts 12 hours. It's like you smoke it and you go straight up for like 15 minutes and you come straight down. So
it's a temporary trip.
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes. And apparently it's like 100 times more powerful than LSD.
And you get rocked hard.
Yeah. I'd love to try that. That's all.
We were talking about this before, and it was like, yeah, don't mention this, but you just remind. One of my favorite things ever was one of my friends who was a really straight-laced guy. He played D&D with us, but other than that, he was like the kind of a square, you'd say, in most things. And we were all going around one night, and we were talking about we'd gotten done gaming, and we were all drinking a little bit, and we were like, so what would you do if you won if you won the lottery, if you won a couple $1 million, what would you do? And he's like, oh, I'd buy a house. I'd get all these different things and stuff. And he's like, heroin. I'd just rent a hotel room and have a nurse sitting by so that if something happened, they could get me off of it. But I'd like to try it really, really safely. And they're like, fair, I guess.
Fair?
If you're like, I want to try it, but I'm going to make sure that I have medical help immediately available to me, but I don't, and I just want to do it the one time. I don't want to, start doing it again. And it's like, that's the weirdest answer to that question I have ever heard. I mean,
you don't need $1 million to try heroin. It's you could just go shoot up at the ER. People do it all the time.
Oh, that's horrible. But yeah. So that
there's a Walmart right across the freeway from where I live, and the parking lot is just full of syringes.
Wow.
Lovely stuff, right?
Oh yeah. The my apartment was and this is gonna sound horrible.
Mm-hmm.
The noise that you guys might have heard, I was trying to mute it, was someone coming in and out and helping move some things that I can't lift. They just happened to have the same time as what was going on here to be able to do so, but carry some stuff out of my apartment because a couple of years ago, the homeless population, not just the homeless population, the tweaker homeless population, was given access to my apartment when I wasn't around very much. Yeah, and so they decided that they were going to redo it. At one point in time, I'm sitting in the living room and I have a spare bedroom, and the spare bedroom I cannot go into. Like, you can't walk in it. There's things piled. And it used to be that this living room, they'd moved everything that was in the spare bedroom except for like the bed and the dresser out here. And it was literally piled to the ceiling in areas of my living room. I could not get to certain parts of my apartment when I would get home. I finally got rid of them all, got them to quit coming by. I had to threaten police a lot. But there's still the one room has a lot of leftover homeless people's stuff and dumpster diving stuff, you know, and like I have 31 shoe arrangements. But I also know that because someone left a syringe on in my bathroom once, just as a warning, that that people were shooting up in my apartment. And so I don't want to go into that room because I'm like, I don't want to be like trying to move something and accidentally get stabbed. So
yeah.
So the person who kind of let them in has been helping me out with cleaning everything out. But that room has things like, you can dumpster dive the weirdest shit. Like, we can get rid of most of their stuff, like the old clothes and stuff. But there's all those things like they carried up a marble coffee table. And I can't move that. That takes like 3 people to move it out of an apartment. And
Tweakers can be really, really ambitious, man.
They are. It was one of the weirdest times in my life. I was just like, wow. And I actually, the thing is okay, I'm talking about this and it's something I don't normally talk about. So I hope, but I practice a lot of different religions and some kind of magic stuffs. And I have a voodoo law and some things going on over there. I do some bottle work. I do some candle work. I do a bunch of different things. And but I don't ever disrespect. Like, I also burn candles for Christians, you know, that have things going on. I respect everyone's religion and I believe in them all. They're all valid, you know. But for a while, when these people would not stop coming to my house and they were stealing things and breaking things and, you know, trying to do like just really weird. I finally got to where I was like, if you're going to come into my home, I'm going to need either your fingernail clippings or some hair. You need to give it to me right now. And so I was charging rent and I have envelopes in a bag still. And like, this one guy went and approached one of the local esoteric shops in town and was like, why is this girl getting my hair when I go into her house? And they were like, you're giving her your hair? You realize that she can cast something on you then because she has something that's a piece of you. Yeah. And I'm not the type of person who's going to go out and put a huge X on something. It's going to be a sympathetic magical type of thing where it's like, if you fuck with me, you're fucking yourself up. I'm not doing anything other than what you're doing to me. But yeah, so they quit coming quite a while ago, but I still have this backpack that has a zipper pocket full of envelopes with people's names and bits of hair or fingernail clippings in it. And I find that kind of hysterical because it's like they went from being like, oh, she's somebody we can push over because she's never there, to like, she's a witch. We have to run away. And it was like, you know,
amazing. Like, people who are really strung out, how superstitious they are. Yeah, I mean, like, they are already on this kind of razor edge of seeing other worlds because they're on that kind of edge of death.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, how, and I've been there myself. So I'm speaking from experience with this. I mean, it's been, you know, I've been sober for 25 years in June, but you know, I was in really bad shape, and I completely understand kind of getting glimpses of the other side when you're like that, and exactly how superstitious and weird you can get. So if somebody had my hair, fuck, man, that would freak me out.
Yeah, and I've kept it this whole time just because I've every now and then, like, somebody, I mean, I had like, they were spreading out my Wi-Fi password and everywhere. I had, my landlord was like, you have more people coming in and out of your apartment and you aren't there than like a convenience store. I've sat and just watched the people go in and out of your door.
Yeah.
And when I changed my Wi-Fi password, I checked and I had like my laptop and my phone should have been and my Kindle should have been running off of it. I had 13 people who were sitting either out in the alley or somewhere using my internet to run their phones, because you can get a phone for free. You just have to pay for the service, but you don't have to pay to use the phone on somebody's internet. So
yeah,
that's what was going on. But I mean, like, I never did anything bad to these people. I didn't take, yeah, I have their hair and stuff. And if they come back up, I'm like, got this. I'll use it. But I never did go. I don't want people to think that I'm like this horrible person that was like out casting spells on terrible people. But they were terrible people at the time, and it probably had a lot to do with what they were on. But life is choices. They made theirs.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
we have got just at the intersection, the major intersection near our house, just a tweaker farm over there of like screaming tweakers that, you know, scream at the cars in traffic and they just scream at the sky. And it's,
yeah.
Well, it's apocalyptic. That's the term for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, good.
Oh, they get that. They just start going zombie on you, you know?
Mm.
And it's, Jenny, I don't know, Friday, I don't know if you've had to deal with a lot of that in your area before, but it is like when you get groups of them together, there have been so many people, like not so many, but a number, more people than I had known before in my life. And these weren't people that I'd ever become friends with. They were just people I saw in my home that I was trying to get rid of, who have died. Like, since that happened, then people I just knew in life that died. And they were all violent deaths of some sort.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I grew up around a whole lot of mental health issues like bipolar, schizophrenia, kleptomania. So more than likely, my dad and my mom and an uncle, whenever they had adopted us, tried to keep us away from the drug population, so to speak.
That's good. And this ties back to what you were saying at the very beginning of the show about the story that you were going to write about somebody going through withdrawal and having everybody surrounding them feel the withdrawal instead of them, is how we're going to make this be a tie-in to the show.
Right.
So
we come full circle to bugs under the skin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And we're just about to hit the 2-hour mark, too.
Hey.
So,
you know, I don't know about y'all, but I do have to go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying we're hitting the 2-hour mark. We should probably do our outro and say goodnight.
Okay.
Yeah. So, where?
Thank you, guys.
Oh.
Before we do that, you
Thank
guys
you.
are awesome. You're very gracious to have me on. You're very patient with my dumb shit. And
we enjoyed every single bit of talking to you. We enjoyed seeing the man behind the stories. And it's more fun to talk with you than it was to actually hear your other interviews. And I love those.
That's cool.
Yes. We hope to have you back.
Well, I will come back anytime you want. if you want me to come on that other thing where we read, I can do that.
Okay. And where do you like to have people interact with you? And what all do you want to promote right now? Here's your moment to tell people, here's how to find me. Here's how to talk to me. Here's what you need to read of mine.
How do we stalk you?
And we do have links up. So
the only way you actually can contact me is on Facebook. I don't have an author page. I just have my own personal page. But you can friend me on Facebook. You can ask me questions. You can talk to me. We can hang out on Facebook.
All right. And as far as Lucky's Girl, it's available right now on Amazon, as well as the Weird House Press, which is currently having a sale as they move their new website.
Yeah, and if you want the ultra super duper edition, right now is the time to get it because it's 20% off, and that costs an arm and a leg. So if you want to, part with one of those limbs at this point, at some point, it's a good time to do it right now.
You can only give up half of it, kind of. You get to keep part of the stub,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and speaking of, if you have time for just a second, we both, Jenny and I are both doing things. I'm going to do the giveaway thing real quick.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we've had some people watching. I'm going to do 2 giveaways for Lucky's Girl, and we have 8 people that have typed in chat. I need to present my screen. So give me just, I should have done this ahead of time. I didn't. It's a bad me. Here we go.
Love you just the way you are. Let me know when to hit play.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Hello, kiddos. It's time to spin the wheel of the match. But remember, this time there's no cheating.
Yay! And we got Stefan as the first winner.
Woohoo!
Yay,
Now,
Stefan.
go down to the epic one for this one, and this will be the second one.
Okay.
All ready? 1, 2, 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, but what's your personality proudly brings for you? It's
No. Now you have to play the cheater for epic.
Okay.
I said no cheating. Cheater. Now we'll have to eat ya.
Okay.
Let's try it again. Redoing
All
epic.
right. Let's do the last one, Marvin.
Marvin? Okay.
Yep. 1, 2, 3.
Get ready, pathetic humans. It is time to spin the wheel of merch. If you cheat, I will destroy your world with my giant laser.
Yay! All right. So, yeah, we got Tom Dog and Stefan won.
Woohoo!
I will be getting those out to you guys in just a little bit as soon as I get off of the show tonight. And for me, by the way, with catching up on people, this host body belongs to Carrie Sanders. That's Kari. If you look me up on Facebook, all of my links are there. And for everything related to me otherwise, Friday handles that. She's really good at it. And so if you reach out to me, she will let me know that you reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And let's hop over to her because she's lovely, wonderful, and handles all of our stuff and has the most things to look after.
Okay, for me, my actual page is Friday with the Library in the Blue Box. My group is Friday Blues Disorganized Library. For everything else, you can find me on Fake Horror, Owlite, Rasty Slasher's page, and Delphine / Carrie's page, and I will get back to them with anything you have to say. Please read theirs and hopefully mine. Oh, yeah, and go get Dark Dreams anthologies. Letting in the Night and Letting in the Day. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining in, and we will see you soon. Have a good night.